Yeah.
This may go down a similar route, but we have Andre in Pennsylvania wanting to call something about a principle of thermodynamics.
Yes. How are you doing today? Happy Mother's Day. Yes. I came up with an argument for God. It has to do with quantum mechanics. And there's a theory in thermodynamics.
Hang on.
It has to do with an absence of information releases energy. Oh, yes.
I don't care.
Yes.
So first of all, thermodynamics is not quantum mechanics. And I'm not a physicist.
It has to do with science.
Either of them. So what difference does it make?
Well, God explains why entropy was minimal at time zero.
No, he doesn't.
Well, I have to get to the what I'm trying to say.
Nope. Go get yourself a Nobel Prize.
Automatically, you would assume he doesn't.
I'm not interested in people talking about quantum mechanics.
Well, I won't talk about quantum. I'll talk about thermodynamics.
Why would I be interested in that either?
Well, because I believe God is physical, not non-physical. I believe God can be proven
in the sense
in the
that
physical realm.
God exists and is bound by the physical realm.
Well, God is the physical realm, but the physical realm and the abstract realm are combined. In the universe, God would be the mind of the universe being the brain. And I think I could prove this in a very short amount of time. If you're willing to listen.
I don't know how that you discuss. Nothing but an assertion of this is how you choose to define God.
Well, God would be an algorithm.
I could say that God is the bubbles in my Coke Zero, and I could therefore demonstrate that God exists, but that doesn't mean he does.
Well, it has to be the maximal amount of it. Well, okay, entropy and information correlate. So at time zero, now I won't get too deeply into this. At time zero, entropy was at a minimum, and information was at a maximum. So minds are measured by information, and therefore the information at the beginning had to be maximal, and that would represent God being all good and all powerful and all knowing.
Okay, I don't buy it. Thanks for calling.
Well.
Yeah, every time I get somebody talking about quantum mechanics or thermodynamics, it's always the same argument of a false dichotomy and then an argument from ignorance. They say it's either this explanation or God, and I don't know something, so it's God. It's always that. And don't get me wrong, I've talked to some really smart people who get onto talking about quantum mechanics, and it's like, wow, you are very educated in this field.
Yeah.
But then your final argument is that there's this thing that you don't know, and that therefore there must be a God. And
so this particular entropy information thing comes from information theory, and it's this notion that as entropy increases, information decreases. But this is a very esoteric view of information, and there's an equivocation fallacy when you try to go back to at the beginning there was zero entropy, which means there was maximal information, and maximal information is something that I'm going to define as consistent with a being that knows and understands everything, except that none of that is real. The thing we're talking about information theory isn't, oh, there must be a God container for all information, and plus, the telling thing about this is that if you're going to redefine God so that it is an entirely a product of the natural world, well, first of all, you've done nothing to explain the origins of this. It doesn't fit with this notion of being outside, but also it means that your God is getting stupider as it goes, because its information is decreasing as the entropy increases, and your God is so now you're just talking about something that you can't demonstrate acts or does anything or cares or has any motivation. What you're doing is saying, for the entirety of human history, the God of classical theism has had within its definition this notion of being all-knowing. And I'm going to look at maximal information in a tiny spot with this kind of colloquial view of the origin, the Big Bang cosmology, and say, there was maximal information there. maximal information that
Right.
God. Well, God's clearly 13.7 billion years stupider than he was when he created the universe under that model. Please explain that. Why of all the characteristics of God did you choose to pick this one that was consistent with some observation while ignoring all the other ones? You know,
Yeah.
does that God turn, water into wine? Does it tell us anything? Does it write a book? Is that the reason why
He helps you find your keys.
Well,
That's about it.
There are old books that are purportedly from God, but there's not newer books because God's intelligence is now dropped to the point where he can't instruct.
Yeah, maybe that's actually a pretty good reason for why we don't have any new holy books.
Yeah, God's got dementia. He wrote it the first time, and when people came back saying, "Hey, we need more information," he's like, "That's the best I could do. I waited 14.7 billion years to write that one. I'm in pretty serious decline here."
Could also explain why the arguments for God just keep getting worse.
Yeah, it might.
Yeah.
It might also explain why somebody thinks that God sent them here to answer something, but only if God wants them to answer it and then didn't bother to check.